Hi everyone, welcome to this Diablo Immortal video. So in this video I'm going to be taking a look at the Blighted Crop essence for Necromancer. So this is a Bone Spirits essence. I'm going to take a look to see what it's like and if it's worth using. So the text for this essence is: critical hits with Bone Spirits trigger Soulfire Novas that deal 6,281 damage. Cannot occur more often than once every 1 second, and subsequent damage from multiple Novas to the same enemy will be reduced by 50%. And you get an additional 90% damage boost for Bone Spirits, and if you've got an Awakened slot you get another 10% damage increase as well. So, seems quite interesting. Let's see what it's like when we actually get around to using this. Okay, so I have this essence equipped in my weapon slot, and obviously we need Bone Spirits equipped as a skill as well. So obviously this essence relies on your character build to have a decent amount of critical hit chance. So you have more of a chance of those Hungering Soulfires to trigger when you do use Bone Spirits on an enemy. So let's take a look to see what it looks like. So I'm just going to attack this training dummy. So there we go, you see those Hungering Soulfire skulls that go outwards from the enemy? That's basically this essence taking into effect. And every time I get a critical hit with Bone Spirits, it does those Bone Spirits explosions, so basically it fires outwards. So I wasn't quite sure what I was going to expect with this essence. I didn't know where the Soulfire is going to come from. I thought it might come from my character, but it seems like the Hungering Soulfire is actually exploded from the target that you've attacked. So let's try that one more time, a bit closer this time. So there you go, 1, 2, 3, I got it 4 times there. I want to see how many times I get it a second time. So roughly in a full charge of Bone Spirits with just a default Bone Spirit skill, I got it to trigger 4 times. Try one more time. 1, 2, 3. So 3 times there. So yeah, obviously depends on your critical hit chance. Mine is at 54% for critical hit chance at the moment. And obviously you can have ways of increasing your critical hit chance with your stats in your gear and certain legendary gems as well. So that's basically what it looks like. If we compare without it, just to double check. So I'm going to remove that essence. And if we try one more time, we shouldn't see those Hungering Soulfires. So there we go. So without the essence, you don't get the exploding Soulfires from the target. So yeah, this seems like an essence you'd more likely use in a PvP environment than PvE. Especially if you're trying to use Soulfire on an enemy. And if there's other enemies around that enemy, you're going to get the Soulfire explode and attack the other enemies. It's quite nice if you're sort of attacking enemies that are on an idol or something like that in Battleground, and then you're going to get additional Bone Spirits with the Hungering Soulfires explode onto other enemies. So let's get the essence back on again. Let's take a look at the skills tab in case there's anything else worth reading about this particular essence that we missed. So this is the one. So critical hits with Bone Spirits triggered Soulfire Novas that deal 6,281 damage. I think I was calling them Hungering Soulfires. I'm used to calling it that, but they're called Soulfire Novas. Cannot occur more often than once every 1 second, which isn't too bad. And subsequent damage from multiple Novas to the same enemy will be reduced by 50%. So obviously those initial burst of damage you get with these Soulfire Novas are going to deal the most amount of damage, and then the more you get hit on the enemy, it will just reduce by 50% each time. So you're really looking out for those initial hits to deal the most amount of damage. But the other good thing about this is you get the 90% damage increase for Bone Spirits if it is a big part of your build. So that's pretty cool. Okay, what I want to quickly try now is just do a before and after comparison of the damage when I do have the essence on, when I don't have the essence on. As for the legendary gems, I'm only going to keep rolling Consequence because it increases my critical hit chance. And also I'm just going to keep Blood-Soaked Jade, but I've removed everything else just to avoid any additional noise. So here we go. This is without the Blighted Crop essence. Okay, so 1 million there from 1 bar. If we have a look at the breakdown, that's just Bone Spirits, and there's no legendary gems taking into effect there. So 1 million. Let me try that one more time. Yep, just 1.1 million, roughly the same. Now let me put the essence back on and now try. So this time we've got the essence back on. Let's just double check in the skills tab. There we go, critical hits with bone spirits trigger soulfire novas. Okay, let's have a look now, see if we get up to the 1 million and above. Yeah, so definite improvement. 2 million. Let me try one more time with a full bar. Because remember, we do get a damage increase when you use this essence. Yeah, there we go. So a definite increase when you do have this new essence equipped compared to when you don't have the essence equipped. So it definitely seems like this is a nice essence to use if you've got a setup where you're further away. So when you do use bone spirits from further away, you do get extra damage, and then you get the burst of those novas away from your enemy that you're targeted, and then attacking other enemies for additional damage. So it's quite nice if you've got enemies grouped up and you just get bone spirits just flying around everywhere. That's pretty cool. And it does seem like you need to pair this with a bone spirits essence, which is quite quick, because if you have a slower bone spirits essence, you're going to have less chances to get the trigger for those novas, and it's going to be not as useful to use. You're going to get the extra damage increase for bone spirits, but you're just not going to get that exploding novas happen very often. For example, let's see what this is like if we pair this with the Wandering Skull. So I'm just going to pair that now. So here we go. This is the Drifter's Fair Essence Wandering Wraith, where Bone Spirits now unleashes a powerful skulls that wanders randomly through nearby enemies, dealing damage as it passes through them. I really like this essence if I am using Bone Spirits in a PvP environment, because you don't have to hold the skill down or anything. You just trigger it and then you just let the Wandering Skulls do all the work. This actually pairs in nicely with Blighted Crop, so critical hits with Bone Spirits trigger soulfire novas, and this also pairs nicely with Adjudicator's Cage, where Bone Spirits damage increased by 66.5% to feared enemies if you do have any other skills which are triggering fear. If we have a look at the skills tab, you can see that all of these work together nicely. So Bone Spirits, you've got a damage skill, you've got Wandering Wraith, so you've got Bone Spirits unleashing that powerful skulls that wanders. You got Bone Spirits damage increased by 66.5% to feared enemies, and you get an additional 10% damage increase. And also you get the critical hits with Bone Spirits trigger soulfire novas. So that gives you the additional 90% damage as well, and another 10%. So it's pretty cool that all three of these Bone Spirits essences pair together nicely, which means if you do have a build which relies on Bone Spirits and PvP, it's nice to have all of these three working together to increase the potential and maximum efficiency for that Bone Spirits essence. So let's take a look now how many times we actually get the soulfire novas to trigger. 1, 2, 3, 4. That wasn't bad actually, 4 times. We roughly got it 4 times with one full bar when we didn't have the Wandering Skulls actually, so that's not too bad. And obviously I got 6.1 million. Let me try that again. So I'm just gonna trigger it twice. 1, 2, 3, 4. It pretty much triggered every time the skulls actually hit the training dummy. That's interesting. Now let me switch to a PvP build that I used to use, which had Bone Spirits. It's an old one that I used to use as Scarecrow build, and I used to really like this one before the Golem came out. So in this one I've got Bone Spirits, Command Skeletons, Skeletal Mages, and I've got Wraith form as well. If I just quickly run through the essences. Helm Spectral Warriors is the Stern Guidance essence. So my Command Skeletons are untargetable, and they can be ordered to rush in towards an enemy and fear them. And I've kind of paired that with Bone Spirits damage increased by 66% to feared enemies. So when I do fear enemies with the skeletons, and this one will trigger. Then for the shoulders, I've got Festering Wounds, so my mages do increase damage for each harmful effect on the enemy. For the pants, okay, so this has been nerfed now, but when I did used to use this essence, it wasn't nerfed. So this is Proximal Fear. I could probably swap this out for something else now for this build if I do end up using it again. But that pairs together with the Wraith form that I've got, which I also use for survivability. Then you've got Command Skeletons damage increase on the weapon, Spectral Mages for the shield, and then this is where the Bone Spirits essences come in. So I've got Communal Rib. Bone Spirits has a 20% chance to inflict fear on enemies lasting 2.4 seconds. Cannot fear the same target more often than once every 4 seconds. So you can see I've got 3 different fear essences that work together here for this particular build. For the shield, I've got Drifter's Fear, so this is the Wandering Wraith. Bone Spirits now unleashes a powerful skulls that wanders randomly through nearby enemies. So this is the sort of build that I used to use with Bone Spirits. Now, I'm quite happy to actually swap out Communal Rib with Blighted Crop because I think that would be much better suited in this build. So this is what I'd do. I'd remove Communal Rib and I'll go down to Blighted Crop and then equip that instead. So now I get those critical hits triggering those Soulfire Novas that deal 6,281 damage, and I get the additional 90% increase. And there we go. If we have a look at the skills tab now, let's just see all of these working together. So we have Wandering Wraith, we've got the extra Bone Spirits damage to feared enemies, and then I've got the critical hits with Bone Spirits triggering Soulfire Novas, and that's giving me that additional 90% damage and another 10% damage. My charm also gives me an additional 2% damage with Bone Spirits, so you can see how this is quite cool for this particular build. So what I'd usually do is I would use Command Skeletons to fear the enemies, get the mages up, and then get the skulls. So now when I do use the skulls, you can see it's doing those novas that are flying out from the actual target itself. So you can see you got mages, skeletal champions, and Bone Spirits all doing damage together. And I'd usually be standing back and doing my primary attacks. Okay, I'm just going to use this essence against the training dummy in full force with this build, just to have a look at how many times. 1, 2, 3, 4. I just want to see how many times I get those novas to trigger within a minute. So I had 4 times so far. 5, 6. Haven't had it trigger for a while. 7, 8. 9, 10. So roughly 11 times we had it trigger within a minute, which is quite interesting. So once again, for this essence, you do need a decent amount of critical hit chance so you can make the most out of this essence as well. So see if you've got any legendary gems that you can use to trigger additional critical hit chance, or if you've got any of your legendary gear where you can add critical hit chance onto them via enchanting. And the more critical hit chance that you have, the better that this Blighted Crop essence is going to be. So it does rely on you having a decent amount of critical hit chance. So if it is too low, you're probably just going to be mainly making use of the additional 90% damage, but not really the Soulfire Novas that deal the 6,281 damage. But it is cool to see the Soulfire Novas trigger when they do. So let's take a look at what other essences there are in the weapon slot for Bone Spirits if you are using Bone Spirits in a build. So you've got El Tongue, but this only increases the Bone Spirits damage by 19%, and as you can see, this one you get a damage increase by 90%, so you wouldn't really want to be using El Tongue here. Core Splitter is another new one that I'm going to look at separately. So this is where Bone Spirits damages the same target 3 times within 2 seconds. It silences them, preventing the use of skills for 2.9 seconds. This is really good in a PvP environment. And if we go down, none of these ones here are Bone Spirits. This one, Arc of Misery. Bone Spirits now bounces whenever it hits a wall. This one's useless, don't bother using this one at all. So that throws that one out the window. So then you've got Communal Rib. This is where Bone Spirits has a 20% chance to inflict fear on enemies. This is cool for a fear build if you've got Chip of Stone Flesh, and if you've got Command Skeletons that fear enemies, and if you've got the other Bone Spirits essence up here, Adjudicator's Cage, where Bone Spirits damage increased by 66.5% to feared enemies. So that works nicely with Communal Rib down here. So that's actually worth using as well if you do want a fear build. And if we scroll down a bit further, we haven't got any more bone spirits essences down here. So that's pretty much it. So I'd say Blighted Crop is actually a pretty good shout when it comes to bone spirits essences in the weapon slot if you are using bone spirits in a build, just for that 90% increased damage. So that's pretty much it for this video, just taking a look at Blighted Crop. It is a pretty decent bone spirits essence if you have a build where you're using all of these different bone spirits essences together. So, you know, like Adjudicator's Curse and Drifter's Fair, or even if you're not using Drifter's Fair, one of the other ones that it pairs against. And then you got Blighted Crop just to do the additional damage, and also those Soulfire Nova Blasts from your enemy. So that's pretty much how this essence works. Let me know if you are using this or if you plan to use it. Like I said, it's pretty useful in a PvP environment, not really PvE. So it's not too bad actually. I'd give this Bone Spirits essence a thumbs up. Let me know if you are using this essence and if you find it useful, and hopefully anyone out there found this video useful. So thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.